You know, when we think about TV history, we usually think about the classics, right? The shows we can still stream or find on DVD. But what about the shows that are, well, just gone? The ones that exist only as whispers in old archives. It's like they're ghosts in the machine. And today, we're going ghost hunting.
I mean, really think about this question for a second. In our world, where everything is on demand and archived forever, how does a TV show with more than 100 episodes just completely disappear? Well, it happened. And the story is a pretty wild glimpse into a totally different era of television.
So let's get into it. We're talking about a daily soap opera called The Bennetts. It aired on NBC way back between 1953 and 1954. It was on every single weekday, and in that short time, they cranked out an incredible 132 episodes. That is a ton of television.
And here's the kicker. Out of all those episodes, 132 of them, you want to know how many we have today? 0. A big, fat 0. Not a single clip, not one frame of video is known to exist. It's a true television ghost story. A show that thousands of people watched every day is now totally invisible.
Okay, so to figure out how it vanished, we first have to understand what it even was. What kind of story were they telling every afternoon that could be so completely and utterly erased from history?
The whole show revolved around this guy, Wayne Bennett. He was this smart, very ethical young lawyer who was just trying to get his practice off the ground in some quiet little Midwestern town. The whole struggle was him trying to succeed without selling his soul.
And of course, right there with him was his wife, Nancy. She was kind of the classic supportive partner, you know? She was the one who had to deal with all the emotional fallout from his constant moral and professional dilemmas.
And what's a 1950s domestic drama without the neighbors, right? Next door were Blaney and Meg Cobb. They were the sounding board, the ones who gave advice, and a lot of the comic relief. You could almost think of them as the show's Greek chorus, commenting on all the everyday problems.
Now, it's one thing for me to tell you what the show was about, but check out how people talked about it back then. This quote from a 1953 magazine says it all. The drama wasn't about some external threat. It was about Wayne's internal struggles. The real story was his own self-doubt and his moral compass.
And this right here really paints the picture. On one side, you have the big, flashy New York soaps of the era. They were all about amnesia, shocking murders, and villains you love to hate. But then you look at the Bennetts, and it's all about ethics, friendship, and these quiet, realistic problems. It was part of this movement called the Chicago School of Television, and it was so grounded that they famously called it an anti-soap.
Now, this quiet little show didn't just pop up out of nowhere. Oh no. It was actually a soldier, dropped right into the middle of what you could call the Great Daytime War.
You have to picture the scene in 1953. NBC decided to go all in on daytime TV to try and steal viewers from their huge rival, CBS. They launched this entire block of new soaps back to back. At 11, you have 3 Steps to Heaven. At 11:30, Follow Your Heart. And sandwiched right in the middle at 11:15 was our show, The Bennetts. It was basically thrown into battle against these giant established hits on CBS. It was a bold move, and, well, it didn't work.
And that whole Chicago school thing, it wasn't just about the quiet, realistic tone. It was a whole different business model. See, these Chicago shows were often used as test markets for regional brands. You know, local companies trying to sell their products. They weren't backed by the massive national sponsors that the New York shows had. This might seem like a small detail, but it's absolutely crucial for what happened next.
Okay, so we know what the show was, and we know the competitive world it was born into. So now let's tackle the big mystery. How in the world does a show like this get completely wiped off the map?
Well, losing a show in the 50s wasn't some big conspiracy. It was just business. It was actually a pretty simple practical process. First off, videotape hadn't been invented yet. So to record a live show, you literally just pointed a film camera at a high-quality TV monitor. The recording was called a kinescope. But film was super expensive, and these big reels took up a ton of space. And when you're making a new show every single day, you just run out of room and money to store everything. So what's the cheapest solution? You just wipe the film and reuse it, or you just throw it all away.
And you just have to absorb the insane pace these people were working at. This wasn't a weekly show they had all week to rehearse. It was performed live every single weekday from a studio in Chicago. That meant the actors were learning a brand new script every single day. It created this mindset that each episode was disposable. The second it aired, it was old news. It was just content to fill a 15-minute slot before you had to start all over again for the next day.
But the show wasn't completely wiped out. the story doesn't end there. Just like archaeologists digging for ancient ruins, researchers have actually found a few precious fragments, little echoes that prove the Bennetts was real.
So what do we have left? What are the clues? Well, tucked away in some university and radio archives, there are a handful of original scripts and show documents. We've also got some audio notes from the show's creator. But the most incredible thing is that there is only one single known photograph of anyone from the cast.
And this is it. It's just wild. The only known image of an actor from the Bennetts doesn't come from a network promo or a magazine spread. It comes from a 1953 set of radio TV stars trading cards, like baseball cards. This one little card with the actor Dan Gibson is the only visual proof we have that these people ever stood on that set. It is literally the ghost's only photograph.
And that leaves us with a pretty chilling thought, doesn't it? The Bennetts wasn't some failed pilot. It was a daily network TV show. If something that mainstream could be completely wiped out just because of practical things like budgets and storage space, what are we at risk of losing today? All of our digital art, our social media histories, the streaming shows that could just disappear from a server one day? The story of the Bennetts is a huge reminder that forever is never guaranteed. If you found this dive into lost media as fascinating as I did, please give this explainer a like, subscribe for more deep dives, and hey, let us know in the comments what forgotten stories you think we should uncover next.